Hello, welcome to Axiom Flux News Live with myself, PJ. Today's date's the 4th of February 2015, and I'm going to bring you quite a bit of news for today. My first article is Taiwan plane cartwheels into river after takeoff, killing at least 19 people. A Trans-Asia Airways 6702.TW plane with 58 passengers and crew on board cartwheeled into a river shortly after taking off from a downtown Taipei airport on Wednesday, killing at least 19 people and leaving 24 missing, officials have said. Got a little video here. I'm going to show you this little video before I carry on.
At least 16 people killed in Taiwan's capital. A plane sent careening into a river after hitting a bridge on Wednesday. The Trans-Asia flight narrowly missed several apartment buildings as it went down shortly after takeoff. 58 people were on board, most of them tourists from mainland China. Fire officials say around a dozen people are still missing. Reuters' Michael Gold is in Taipei.
There is a large rescue operation currently underway. Multiple units, including military and police, 2 large cranes, which are attempting to sort of extract the plane from the relatively shallow river, as there are still a number of people inside. No, I've never really seen anything like this in the greater Taipei area.
Air traffic control says the pilot put out a mayday call just before the crash, using the words "flame out," a code suggesting that engine failure may have led to the crash.
Okay, so miraculously 15 people survived the crash after the plane lurched between buildings, clipped an overpass with its port side wing, and crashed upside down in the shallow water. Dramatic pictures taken by a motorist and posted on Twitter showed the plane cartwheeling over the motorway soon after the turboprop ATR 72-600 aircraft took off in apparently clear weather on a domestic flight for the island of Kinmen. "I've never seen anything like this," a volunteer rescue surnamed Chen said of the most recent in a series of disasters to hit Asian carriers in the past 12 months. Television footage showed survivors wearing life jackets, wading and swimming clear of wreckage. Others included a young child, were taken to shore in inflatable boats. Emergency rescue officials crowded around the partially submerged fuselage of Flight GE-235, lying on its side in the river, trying to help those on board. Taiwan's civil aviation regulator raised the death toll to 19, with 15 injured and 24 missing. China said 31 of its tourists were on board. The plane missed an apartment building by meters, though it was not clear if that was luck or whether the pilot was aiming for the river. Footage showed a van skidding to a halt on the damaged overpass after barely missing the plane's wing, with small pieces of the aircraft scattered along the road. The chief executive of Trans-Asia, Peter Chen, bowed deeply at a television news conference as he apologized to passengers and crew. Trans-Asia's shares closed down 6.9% in heavy trade, its biggest percentage decline since late 2011. Chinese Premier Li Qiang said his government had offered Taiwan any help necessary following the crash. "Mayday, mayday." The last communication from one of the aircraft's pilots was "Mayday, mayday. Engine flame out," according to an air traffic control recording on liveatc.net. A flame out occurs when the fuel supply to the engine is interrupted, or when there is faulty combustion, resulting in an engine failure. Twin-engined aircraft, however, are usually able to keep flying even when one engine has failed. The plane was powered by two Pratt & Whitney PW127M engines. Pratt & Whitney is part of United Technologies. The head of Taiwan's Civil Aviation Authority, Lin Taming, said the aircraft last underwent maintenance on January the 26th. The pilot had 4,916 hours of flying hours under his belt, and the co-pilot had 6,922 hours, he said. Taipei's downtown Songshan Airport, the smaller of the city's two airports, provides mostly domestic flights, but also connections to Japan, China, and South Korea. A statement from China's Taiwan Affairs Office said 31 of those on board were tourists from the southeastern city of Xiamen, which lies close to Taiwan's Kinmen Island. I'll play more on this, and I'm sure more will be coming through today and the next few days to come. But yeah, keep your eye on that one, guys. My next one. Iraqi militant executed after the IS murders pilot. Two executions come hours after Jordan promised an earth-shattering and decisive response to IS burning a captured pilot alive. Jordan has executed two prisoners after Islamic State murdered one of their pilots, a government spokesman said. One of those executed was Iraqi would-be suicide bomber Sajida al-Rishawi, who was on death row for her role in a hotel attack that killed 60 people. The other was Zayed al-Kabuli, who had been in aid to the late former leader of Al-Qaeda in Iraq, Abu Musab al-Zarqawi, and who was sentenced to death in 2008 for plotting terror attacks on Jordanians in Iraq. I think it's a short video to show on the exact length. We'll give it a go.
Jordan's response was swift. Just before dawn, a convoy of vehicles drove prisoner Sajida al-Rishawi to Swaka prison, an indication of Jordan's intention to kill her. One of two prisoners to be executed by hanging, their bodies were brought out a few hours later. After the death of the Jordanian pilot Muaz al-Qasasbi at the hands of Islamic State, there seemed little alternative but for Jordan to respond by ending the life of a prisoner who's been on death row since 2006 after her part in a suicide bomb plot in the Jordanian capital. The Jordanian government said it had also executed another member of al-Qaeda in Iraq, Ziad al-Kabuli.
The armed forces will avenge the death of the hero to confirm that the blood of the martyred pilot wasn't shed in vain. And the revenge for the martyr Muath will be as great a calamity as that has been inflicted on Jordan.
For more than a week, there have been negotiations of sorts to try to secure the release of the Jordanian pilot. He was captured by IS in December in Syria when his plane came down. IS said his life would be spared if a prisoner swap involving al-Rishawi and a Japanese prisoner, Kenji Goto, went ahead. In the event, Goto was killed and al-Qasasbi was burnt alive. There has been an angry response on the streets of Jordan, with an appetite for revenge. Many have vowed to join the fight against IS. But on the streets of the pilot's hometown, Karak, the mood was somber.
What happened shakes the feeling of all Jordanians. No Muslim can accept what has been shown by ISIS. Which religion do they belong to, this ISIS? How can you burn a Muslim who believes in God?
Coincidentally, Jordan's King Abdullah was visiting the United States as news of the pilot's death broke. Jordan is part of a US-led coalition carrying out airstrikes against Islamic State, a partnership which will be challenged by domestic opinion in the wake of the death of Muaz al-Qasasbi.
Okay, pretty much has been explained there. One of those executed was Iraqi would-be suicide bomber Sajida al-Rishawi, who was on death row for her role in an hotel attack that killed 60 people. There's the pilot there. Obama condemns IS killing video. What is Iraq's future without IS? 26-year-old murdered appeared to be aimed at pressuring the government of Jordan, a close US ally, to leave the coalition that has carried out months of airstrikes on IS positions in Syria and Iraq. But observers say the extremist brutality against a fellow Muslim could backfire and galvanize other Sunni Muslims in the region against them. King Abdullah II, Jordan's leader, has portrayed the campaign against the extremists as a battle over values. In a speech on Jordanian state television, he urged his countrymen to unite. It's the duty of all of us to stand united and show the real values of Jordanians in the face of these hardships, the monarch said from Washington. In a statement before a meeting, King Abdullah, US President Barack Obama vowed the pilot's death would redouble the vigilance and determination on the part of our global coalition to make sure they are degraded and ultimately defeated. Some strong words from Obama. Okay, moving on. Three-parent babies could be at greater risk of cancer, warn scientists. MPs are to vote on whether to allow three-parent babies, but scientists across the world have warned it would be an historic mistake. So I've got this tied in with quite a few articles, really. I was going to go through the basis of this article before I move on to the one attached. Three-parent babies could be at greater risk of cancer and premature aging and would need to be monitored all their lives, experts have said. As they warn the UK, it is on the verge of an historic mistake. Today, MPs will be asked to amend the Human Fertilisation and Embryology Act 2008 to allow the DNA of a second mother to be used to repair genetic faults in an unborn child. But experts from academic institutions across the world, including the US Food and Drug Administration, believe that Britain will be left out on a limb and at odds with the rest of the world by rushing through new legislation. The latest Comres poll also found that only 10% of the public think the government are right to push through the new legislation without waiting for the conclusion of pre-clinical safety tests. And fewer than half of people asked in a recent consultation by the Human Fertilisation and Embryology Authority agreed that it would be a good idea, despite the HFEA claiming that the issue had broad public support. 44 MEPs have also written an open letter to Jeremy Hunt, the Health Secretary, expressing concerns about the procedure and warning that the UK may be breaking European laws in seeking to modify the germline. Dr. Trevor Stammers, Programme Director in Bioethics and Medical Law at St Mary's University, said, "Even if these babies are born, they will have to be monitored all their lives. And their children will have to be as well. We do not yet know the interaction between the mitochondria and nuclear DNA. To say that it is the same as changing a battery is facile." It's an extremely complex thing. Dr. Paul Knopfler, associate professor at the University of California, also warned that babies could be born with defects and said Britain was on the brink of an historic mistake. So, the article is this: British MPs say yes to 3-person babies. London. Britain voted on Tuesday to become the first country to allow a 3-parent IVF technique, which doctors say can prevent some inherited incurable diseases, but which critics see as a step toward creating designer babies. Parliament voted overwhelmingly for the technique called mitochondrial donation, which is also known as 3-parent in vitro fertilization. Because the babies would have DNA from a mother, a father, and from a female donor. The treatments, which are still at the research stage in laboratories in Britain and the United States, are designed to help families with the mitochondrial diseases, incurable conditions passed down the maternal line that affect around 1 in 6,500 children worldwide. Proposed new laws allowing the treatments to be carried out in the UK still have to be approved by Britain's upper house, which commentators expect to endorse Parliament support. So what exactly is this mitochondrial disease? If you've never heard of it, or you're new to it, maybe if you're just briefly familiar with it. Got a little interesting video here for you. It's a couple of minutes long. Go ahead and play this, see what it's saying.
What's mitochondrial disease? Small, strong, and full of energy, just like the mitochondria which are in every cell in your body. Mitochondria are the life force inside us all. They are the power supply in all our cells, providing energy for them to survive, thrive, and make sweet music. Our body's organs, brain, heart, liver, are high maintenance and require a lot more energy to perform their functions. When someone has mitochondrial disease, their mitochondria have become run down, and the cell's power goes out. They stop performing and start to die, so the body's organs don't have enough energy to work. Mitochondrial disease can affect anyone. Recent research shows that about 1 in 200 babies in the UK are born with genetic changes that can cause it. Faulty mitochondria have been linked to a number of common diseases. Whilst some people do not show symptoms, others develop problems that are undiagnosed or misdiagnosed. There are still very few effective treatments and no cure. For children with the disease, it can be debilitating and their lives can be cut tragically short. Here at the Lily Foundation, we raise awareness and support families who are living with the condition or who have lost a child to mitochondrial disease. We are also working towards finding a breakthrough in mitochondrial research that will eventually lead to a cure, with the hope of saving many children's lives and children suffering in the future. There is hope. There is the Lily Foundation. Help us make a difference.
So, in every cell in the body, apart from the red blood cell, the mitochondria are responsible for producing energy that the cell needs to function. Cell makes up tissues and organs in our bodies, for example, the heart and liver. They are like power stations in our bodies, supplying the energy every cell needs to function. If our cells do not have energy, then the tissues or body organs that the cells are made up of do not work properly. In the same way that if power stations do not produce enough energy for the country, there will be areas of blackout where parts of the country could not function. Do have a look at this if you're interested in this sort of information here that I'm putting forth on Flux News for you. Raising awareness. I always tend to raise awareness on certain things that whether it's new to me or not, you know, many things I always get stuck into reading, but this is something you really ideally need to read yourself to get a better understanding, or a more complete understanding than what I can currently put across. But there it is, the website's the lilyfoundation.org.uk. And yeah, let me know if you've found any more information on that you think could be worth putting back out on a further episode of Flux News. So let's go to the other articles I've got lined up. This is the BBC. Half of UK people will get cancer. Now this article is in some sort of an addendum to the one that was done many months ago, where it said 50% of the UK population will have cancer by 2020. So why is it all of a sudden coming back out on pretty much, you know, here's another one. I'll talk about these two. Pretty much on most mainstream medias today. 1 in 2 people in the UK will be diagnosed with cancer at some point in their lives, analysis suggests. Cancer Research UK said this estimate, using a new calculation method, replaced a forecast of more than 1 in 3 people developing the disease. It said longer life expectancies meant more people would be affected. But it was not inevitable, and improving lifestyles such as losing weight and quitting smoking could have a major impact, the charity added. The good news is cancer survival figures are also rising. The seemingly sudden jump in diagnosis estimates is down to researchers developing a more sophisticated and accurate method for analyzing the risk of cancer. However, both the new and old methods show the same long-term trend, a rise in the lifetime risk of developing cancer. Nearly 54% of men will develop cancer, compared with just under 48% of women. The figures indicate food pipe tumours. Fewer deaths from heart disease and infections mean more people are living long enough to develop cancer. But lead researcher Professor Peter Sassini from Queen Mary University of London said it isn't inevitable. There is quite a lot we can do to prevent cancer, and hopefully in many years' time, I'll have been proven completely wrong. He's referring to lifestyle factors including obesity, red meat consumption, and smoking that increase the odds of a tumour developing. Lung cancer cases are still increasing in women. Breast cancer is likely to remain the most common cancer among women, as the image shows above. He told the BBC that a healthy lifestyle could lower the lifetime risks from 50% to 30%. Breast and prostate cancers are likely to remain the most common cancers in women and men respectively. However, some cancers are rapidly becoming more common. Tumours in the food pipe caused by acid reflux and obesity are being seen more often in clinics. Head, neck cancers caused by the human papillomavirus are increasing, and oral sex is thought to be behind the rise. A milestone. Okay, let's see this milestone. Dr. Harpal Kumar, the Chief Executive of Cancer Research UK, said, We have researched what many would regard as an important milestone. We need to plan ahead to make sure the NHS is fit to cope. If the NHS doesn't act and invest now, we will face a crisis in the future, with outcomes from cancer going backwards. Dr. Emma King, a head and neck surgeon at Hull Hospital in Dorset, said rising cancer cases would have a huge impact on clinical services offered by the NHS. The NHS needs to act to avoid a future cancer crisis, experts say. She said there needed to be more focus on prevention and strategies to ensure cancers were caught earlier. It is far easier to treat an early stage cancer so a patient is more likely to live, and it saves the NHS money. Sean Duffy, the National Clinical Director for Cancer at NHS England, said cancer survival rates in England are at an all-time high. But this new forecast shows it is more important than ever to make a fresh look at how we can do even better. He said there needed to be action on 3 fronts: better prevention, swifter diagnosis, and better treatment, care and aftercare for all patients. So in The Guardian's covering it a little bit differently, same sort of thing really. Half of people in Britain born after 1960 will get cancer. Some study shows. Cancer research paper factors in future population changes such as more of us growing older and changes in our lifestyle habits. 1 in 2 people will be diagnosed with cancer in their lifetime, according to the Cancer Research UK, which says more effort must be made to prevent people getting the disease and that the NHS must plan to treat more patients. Basically goes on to the same sort of stuff, just worded differently, I guess, and many more. These are just 2, the BBC and The Guardian, that I picked out. But if you look out there, I think pretty much all the mainstream media are putting out their own little version of it. But this is no news, no new news, even though it has got today's date. It's quite an old article, really. It's been put out there many times before. Okay. Final article for today. Is American Sniper historically accurate? The Clint Eastwood simplistic film about one of the deadliest snipers in US history piles on Bush-era propaganda and sharpshoots the facts. So this is the latest box office #1 film called American Sniper, based on, I'll say, story, not a true story or a false story. I'd say story for now. On the Chris Kyle, known as a legend. He was a US Navy SEAL who served in Iraq in the early 2000s. He is considered the deadliest sniper in US history, with a recorded 160 confirmed kills out of 250 probable kills. He later served as a bodyguard for Sarah Palin. The opening sequence of the movie, also featured in a trailer, depicts Chris Kyle, played by Bradley Cooper, with his sights trained on a street in Iraq ahead of a Marine convoy. A woman comes out of a house and hands a Russian-made RKG-3 anti-tank grenade to a young boy. She sends the child running towards the convoy. Should Kyle shoot? It's a tense moment, and the same incident the real Kyle used to open his memoir, American Sniper, on which this film is based, but it has been heightened for the screen. In real life, there was no child, only an adult woman. The film makes her extra evil by having her send a child to his death. The real Kyle wrote that she had a Chinese grenade. It may have been a small hand grenade rather than an anti-tank weapon, which is bigger than easy to see. It was, he wrote, the first time in Iraq and the only time I killed anyone other than a male combatant, at least as far as he knew. I'd say looking down a scope of a sniper, you get a good idea of what it is that's in your sights, in your line of fire, more than somebody else would with any other sort of gun. So what's this all about? Well, quite a lot's come out recently over the Chris Kyle. If you haven't seen the movie and you're wanting to see it, then perhaps give this article a read first. Then watch the film to see what you think and do a bit of research into it. But yes, Chris Kyle, who is no longer with us, he was shot and killed on a shooting range with his fellow friend. So what's the film really going to be going into is quite a lot that probably didn't happen, according to quite a few articles I've read lately. Also, for those that are familiar with this, they'd be also too aware on the event what ended up being put in a book to do with a certain somebody who today is known as apparently to be Jesse Ventura, over a series of events where Chris Kyle allegedly supposed to have assaulted Jesse Ventura to some degree, and once Ventura found out he was referring to himself in his book, he contacted Chris Kyle and told him, to withdraw the part, the statement in his book, mention of. I don't think he actually mentioned Jesse Ventura by name in his book, but Ventura did go to court and he did win his case. I think he got 1.4 million from that, which was, apparently the conclusion of it was to make Chris Kyle some sort of liar. But no more lying than the actual film based on him, where, he actually says a bit of truth where there was no child. So a lot of stuff's been put out there, all to do with just this one guy. Now, because this guy is no longer with us anymore, I don't really want to add to the pot. I just want people to concentrate on the main things and not really try to get tied up in all this stuff, because nothing positive surely would come from any of this. And with American Sniper being #1 at the box office, it's quite easy to be brainwashed into believing certain things or being aware of certain things that could influence you to believe certain things that probably never existed. Good guys, it says, yeah, every kill Kyle makes, even with shots taken after split-second decisions, is 100% righteous and saves American lives. The skull logo of Marvel's murderous vigilante, the Punisher, is on his vest and is an armored vehicle. He also went by quite a few names, as the Shaitan, the devil of an area in Iraq. I can't quite remember the exact word or the name of the area. Here it is. This film alters Kyle's book significantly, but the reliability of his account may also be open to question. In 2014, wrestler turned politician Jesse Ventura won over $1.8 million, £1.2 million in damages from Kyle's estate after a jury decided he had been defamed. Kyle claimed he had punched Ventura in the bar after Ventura said Navy SEALs deserved to lose some for their actions in Iraq. Apparently, that's what Ventura has said. But Ventura said he had never even met Kyle. In a separate case, Kyle told a writer he had shot and killed 2 armed men who attempted to carjack him in Dallas. Reporters were unable to confirm this with county sheriffs and medical examiners, all of whom insisted no such incident had ever taken place. Kyle further claimed that he and another sniper had sat on top of the Superdome in New Orleans during the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina and killed 30 armed civilians he thought were making trouble. Again, this story could not be confirmed by any of the relevant authorities. So, quite an interesting character. The film's been class clean Harry, like dirty Harry, but boring. I haven't really watched the film. I'm not really sure if I'll probably end up watching this film. Many more things to be doing there, but moving on. In fact, there's no more articles I've got to move on to. So I think that's a roundup really of what's been happening that I've managed to come across today. We will be back later. Hopefully I'll have somebody joining me for the next episode of Flux News. Similar articles down here. As a job centre advisor, I got brownie points for cruelty. Welcome to the most corrupt nation in Europe. Lance Armstrong charged after letting partner take blame for car crash. And so the articles already previously covered today. So thank you guys for joining me. Do apologise that we've got no comments from the usual staff or anybody else that joins on Flux News. If you are interested in joining and discussing some articles, and please feel free to get in contact from the axiomcurb.org website or send an email to axiomcurb@live.com. Somebody from the team will get back to you as soon as possible. And yeah, I personally look forward to hearing and seeing you guys on. This is what this is all for. It's just to have a mix of people from many parts of the world putting forth their own version, their own slant on the current news, whether mainstream or alternative. Just say things, as you see it, really, and let's have a little bit of a people power in these publications of what could sometimes be nonsense. But there you go, guys. Enough from me for today. Do join me again tomorrow for more Flux News live broadcasted from the Axiom Curb. Take care and talk to you later.